And this title takes its cue from an incident described by the late, great and sorely missed Christopher Hitchens and his legacy to our popular culture. One of the questions that sort of sprung to my mind is, why is there no focus for Orwell worship in the same way that there is a focus for, say, Shakespeare worship, Bronte worship, Wordsworth worship, or whatever?
My goal is to show you how Orwell mattered to women of his day, and to suggest how those women's impressions of Orwell might matter to all of us who still care about Orwell. During or after the heyday of second wave feminism, it was not unreasonable for us to conclude from the biographical and critical record that Orwell, and I'll put Orwell in quotes there, you know, the myth, the man, whatever that name resonates, was more likely to absorb us than we were to absorb him.
I will briefly trot through a few things. First and foremost, trying to give an overview of the idea of a Tory anarchist in English culture. What does Orwell mean by that? What conclusions can we reach about the idea when we look at the other figures that have had that term applied to them or haven't themselves embraced it? He was, as we know, a serious man with a sense of humour, committed to his sense of public image, I think, hence the construction of George Orwell, the writer, as opposed to Eric Blair, the man, one might say.
One American publisher tried to exhibit 1984, you know, at the Moscow book fair, and what a scandal followed, and they literally said, display anything, even called the mayor for some reason. They said, I remember it very well, I was there, but not this horrible book. So they had to take it off. There was a huge scandal. Embraced the society and the system, you know, back there, which meant I never embraced propaganda either. In this respect, the Cold War propaganda coming to us from the West, no matter how heavily jammed it was quite actually useful and a good thing, because it allowed us to maintain.
As some of you might be aware, there was quite a shock about 10 years ago when it was revealed that George Orwell had been communicating with this shady Foreign Office outfit called the Information Research Department, or IRD for short. Secondly, Orwell was an outsider. He was independent of government, a man who persuaded us all that he was very, very disconnected from government, would not be a hireling of any outfit connected to the state. And the CIA wanted to appropriate that.
And people talk about his gloom and pessimism. I read those 70 pieces with a smile across my face. They're so wonderfully celebratory of everything that good journalism is.
There was an interesting ambivalence that on one level he seemed to be disapproving of squeamishness, and on another level he seemed to be quite capable of being quite neutral about it. I wasn't sure how conscious that was, and it seemed to me that across the ranges of his work, he was playing around with different ideas of squeamishness.
But anyway, I'm going to start out boldly. There's nothing less natural than nature. The idea of nature. Here, nature represents non-human forces that stand against humankind, controlled by gods, whom Odysseus must appease, trick, or coerce into doing his bidding.
In how Orwell writes. And I think, or I'll argue and I'll end on this, that Orwell is actually more of what might be called a nomad. If you think about a nomad travels from point A to B. They stay in the middle, if you like. They never really settle down. I think one interesting thing about Orwell is that he uses his body and his sensations to merge temporarily with the embodied sensations of others. And so therefore, we learn about the plight of others through Orwell, but we also manage to gain a sort of moralistic empathy with the plight of others, I think. I think he's very good at using his own embodied experiences and sensations.
But what I don't think you can do is I don't think you could say Orwell would have said the invasion of Iraq was right, or Orwell would have said the invasion of Iraq was wrong, because apart from anything else, it's just blind, ahistorical kind of speculation. You can't actually say any harm. A free man, Eric Blair, philosophically followed George Orwell on his crusades, perhaps out of a sense of responsibility, and thus enjoyed great and profitable entertainment to the end of his days.
Stranglehold that the supermarkets have over our food, and in that respect I think Orwell kind of would fit in fairly well with some of the ideas of people like Hugh Fearnley-Whittingstall. I think the difference is that Orwell probably saw it as part of a more holistic political project, whereas Hugh Fearnley-Whittingstall's campaigns, while very admirable in lots of ways, are rather sort of single issue and not connected up with this wider critique of modernity that Orwell was involved in.
Talk about that.